Good evening. Today is March 8th, 2018. This is the March meeting of the Redevelopment Commission. Starting on my right, I'd like to introduce our members.
Tara Wolf.
Kathy Chappell, Secretary.
I'm Donald Webb, the President.
Mark Rim.
Okay, first order of business will be the February minutes. I would ask if there's any additions, corrections, and if not, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. The next thing will be the payment of the bills. We have bills this month of $32,474.92. Following people were paid. Crossroads Engineers, $4,200 and $27,500. That was the agreement we had last year to do the environmental studies on the Greenway. Beech Grove Sewage Works, $1,875. Tim Showalter, who produces our videos, $225. And Lewis and Capps, that's our RDC lawyer, Robert Runn. That was $531.17. Any questions? If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve payment of the bills.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You will sign. I'll pass them over. Dr. Kaiser, you wanted to speak tonight? I guess you can be first up unless somebody else wants to be. Thank you, sir.
I think I have mine from last.
Thank you.
No, guess I don't.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. And if you're at the city council meeting on Monday, you saw this then, I'll give you the same information. But every 5 years since I've been at Beech Grove, we start strategic planning. And the first 5 years resulted in a lot of positive throughout the school district, especially with our HVAC systems, wonderful performing arts, new band room, our theater area, choir area, and the entrance into our activity center, the gym, along with a lot of other fixing up we did from roads to roofs and things like that, and security we did. So we started back in September. We had over 60 people attend 3 different meetings. We invited community members, stakeholders of all type, our teachers, and we've developed kind of our second round of strategic plan. So what I just wanted to present to the RDC and obviously our community members, because we have so many key stakeholders, are just our goals. And that's all they are today. They are goals. And I'll go through those very quickly. The first thing you'll see in our little vision or our tree, our focus areas for our strategic planning is high student achievement, which is always our number one. Highly effective, motivated staff, strong parent, family, and community members, safe, orderly, and caring environment. And that was a lot with our security and air conditioning. Fiscal responsibilities. We have cut well over $1 million with the folks. Unfortunately, we've had to make some cuts over the last few years, but we think we're much more efficient. And then having highly functional facilities and equipment. So as we design our strategic plan, if it doesn't fall under those focus areas, it doesn't end up in the plan. We don't do it. And so that was our basis. We did a lot of brainstorming, a lot of processing with our teams. And out of that, we came up with 9 goals. And the first 3 are the ones we spent the most time focusing on. The first one is to create an early childhood center and to redesign our K-3 Hornet Park campus. For those that have been around a couple of years, you know, we used to have 2 elementary schools. South Grove and Central were separate, that time 1st grade through 5th grade elementaries, and at some time I think even 6th grade. In the current setup we now with K1 at Hornet Park and 2-3, we really want to make some changes for that. And if you want to go to our website, we have a lot of details on this. This is a Cliff Notes version. We have a lot of comments from teachers, a lot of research in there. Just go to strategic planning, and you can read all that fun stuff. But part of our reconfiguration is setting that up. And we think the most critical component of that is preschool. I would invite you to talk to our kindergarten teachers when we have kids that come in that they don't know their given name, let alone a number or a letter. And we think creating a early childhood center, we think we could host anywhere from 280 to 300 kids in that type setting. We think that need is there. That's probably our biggest critical concern about this entire process. If we do that, we want to take South Grove, make it just a 4-5 campus, and then we want to take our 6th grade and move them to Central to create a 6th grade academy. If you know 6th graders, they're kind of never land. They don't really fit with 4th and 5th graders, and they surely don't want them with middle school kids, even though we used to do that. Some districts like Perry Township, Logansport, they have a separate 6th grade academy with separate interests. They don't really interact much with 7th and 8th grade. So we like to do that. So that's kind of our goal reconfiguration related to that. Tying into that, goal number 2, again, I mentioned early childhood center. We just think that's critical. As you look around Marion County, Lawrence, Washington, Pike, Warren Township, Perry Township, Decatur Township, and Wayne Township, they have all early childhood centers. And we just think that's real critical. We also think this can help with economic development. We think having an early childhood center will draw young adults to come here and to move their families here if that's available for them. Again, that's a critical component of this. The third goal, and I see we have park board members and park employees here, is looking at the idea of trying to create a community center downtown. So what we are throwing out as an offer is, as we move 6th grade over, we think we'll have 8 to 9 rooms available if the Parks Department would like to move in there, and also keep the current Hornet Park as is. We don't need any of that space to reach our goals. So that could stay in place, and then we would offer, to allow the Parks Department, we would work with them to develop that area so we could have a community center downtown. I tell the story that I was meeting with Joey Fox one day, and I said, hey, I was talking about this idea of building a community center near Hornet Park. He said, Paul, we need it downtown. And that really flipped my thinking. If you think about it, getting kids in downtown Beech Grove to community center would be wonderful. If you walk around at 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, hanging around the library, there's a lot of kids just doing nothing, even on cold days like today. So, that's something we've talked to the Parks Department about. And I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions on goal 1, 2, and 3. Again, I want to emphasize, these are just goals. We hope our board on May 8th will vote on these 9 goals. Then we'll really get busy trying to accomplish them. I've dazzled you with my information. Again, we just think this would be a positive for our community. Obviously, we have to look at the timing of this. Also, we'll have to do a referendum, and we would do the referendum in the spring of 19 or maybe the fall of 20, based on everything that's going on. But again, we will not ask our board. None of this really gets real serious until we get to January of 19. That's when we would ask our board, yeah, we want to move forward. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking to our key stakeholders in the community and getting feedback. 4, 5, and 6, I'll just go through this very quickly. We want to go through program evaluation. We're constantly working on a compensation model. Our teachers now start out at $40,000, and they end up at $78,000, which we think is a pretty good scale. Even at that, we're still the lowest in Marion County, but if you compare around the state, that's very, very competitive. Places even like Greenwood and outside, they're still in the mid-30s, so we've made some good strides in that. We also think effective, motivated staff. We think having an early childhood center would be great for our teaching staff. We have 166 teachers. 150 of those are not at the top of the scale. They're not the highest experience level. Most of our teachers have 1, 2 to 5 years experience. So having an early childhood center might help us retain, because they could bring their kids to the early childhood center. Also, part of the community center, we would like to look at having a kind of a parent-family community room. Even looking somewhere in our district, we do have a food pantry, but most people don't know that's tucked away in the high school, and trying to work that into that as a process. Again, 7 and 8 is continue to renovate our other buildings, and also to work as our second English language population, which has increased quite a bit. Those are all things. Also, we want to start get our high ability program back. Also, we've talked in this elementary process of start teaching Spanish at an early age. A couple other side notes on that. We'd like to put in 2 greenhouses for our agri-science kids, if you're familiar with that. We have the second largest FFA program in the state of Indiana, and that does not stand for Future Farmers of America anymore. It's just FFA. But we're very active in getting involved in hydroponics and competing, and we think a greenhouse at the middle school and the high school is going to take our students to the next level. The other aspect of this, we're working on some grant dollars. We'd like to put an amphitheater down in the lower part of Central, down there where the playground used to be. We think that could really attract a lot of people. We have Music on Main coming back this year. Chamber announced that today. We think having a community amphitheater down in that area, again, could really help with economic development, get people to move here, switch from the rental properties. We like to have less transfer kids and more kids that live in Beech Grove. None of this target is to increase our student enrollment. We have enough kids. We're not trying to look at bringing these buildings together so we can bring in more transfer kids, just the opposite. We want to get more people moving to Beech Grove. We have a third transient population. Our students, both transfer and in-district, will change a third from September to September. And we're working hard to try to change that. We want people to come and be more homeowners and less rental so they stay longer. So those are our goals. Again, we just wanted to communicate that to you guys. So our biggest challenge, we think, is misinformation, and just trying to get the word out. We love to work with the Parks Department as we move forward and make that space available. If we can, win the referendum and create our first couple goals, we'd like to continue to do that. We'd like to see a Beech Grove Elementary School, Beech Grove Early Childhood Center, and then a Beech Grove Community Center at some point in time, all thriving and going. And again, our job is to help enhance Beech Grove to the best of our ability. So I appreciate it. Let me say a few words and communicate our goals. Yes, Kathy?
When you say community center downtown, where are you?
Central Elementary.
Okay.
If we move 6th grade in, we're going to have, and I'm going to look, is it 8 rooms or 9 rooms? I forget. 9 rooms on the 10th Street side. And we can put parking along there, but those rooms would be available. Really not much renovation needs to take place.
Right.
And we would do that through our process with the referendum and then make it available to the Parks Department. What's really good, we can divide the gym into 2/3 and 1/3, so it can even be used during the day. And that's the neatest gym in Marion County as far as I'm concerned. We're never going to take those old basketball goals down. They remind me of my days at St. Andrews, I guess. But we think that could be available totally during the day. Then after school, there'll be a wall that you push a button, and then the whole gym, and quite frankly, the whole school could be used for a lot of different activities, from 3:30 to however late it would be open. So again, we're just offering it as an option to be considered, and we think it'd be kind of cool.
I agree. The pre-K, are those kids funded?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. Now, in Marion County, they are funding 3- and 4-year-olds. And it's not over the state yet. They've hit the highest poverty areas, Marion County, Fort Wayne, Evansville, Richmond, and certain areas. And we're really looking into right now. I can't tell you the dollar amount. I get $6,300 right now for a kindergarten through high school kid. We don't know what that money is, but Rita Bass is really working hard on that. And we think for a lot of our parents, that'll be fully funded. So, but we just think that's going to make a huge difference in our community, both academically and, again, bringing people to Beech Grove. Because they shop educational facilities, and that's a missing component we have right now. And I'll stay after. If anybody in the audience has a question, I'll be here throughout at the end of the meeting. If they want to ask any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
You want to go next, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
I'll defer my normal report so we can go to the Greenway. I want to welcome everybody tonight and thank you for coming out. A little background on the Greenway. The Greenway was thought of a long time ago, and now we're getting closer to it actually happening, and it is a joint project between the City of Beech Grove and the Redevelopment Commission. We are splitting the cost 50-50. So it's an approximately $3.3 million project, and the Indianapolis MPO and NDOT has awarded us $2.6 million to construct this greenway. So generally when that happens, it's about 4 years out. So this project should start anytime after July 1st of 2020. So it's not very far away. And as we get closer to the letting from NDOT, we have to make some decisions on a whole gamut of things. Safety, where's this thing actually going to go? What's it going to look like? How can we access it in an emergency? All kinds of things. So input from the city is important. Input from the Redevelopment Commission is important, but mostly input from the Parks Board. This thing runs right through the park system, and they are going to have to maintain it once it's constructed. Also, the Greenscape Commission, who's here as well tonight, they're going to have a say in what type of foliage is going to be planted, what is this going to look like, and of course the RDC. So we are asking for constant input from all of you so we can come up with something what this looks like. And with that would include the police department and the fire department and our public works department. So tonight, the engineers, the architect and engineers on this project is Crossroad Engineers, who's in Beech Grove. And then also they have a landscape engineer tonight here, Mike Rochelle with Schneider. So I want Matt from Crossroad to run you through what is going to, so far what we've got, and step by step. And if you have questions, please ask. And then your input is important and needed. So Matt?
Thank you, Mayor. All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, RDC, for having me tonight. Again, my name is Matt McElroy. I'm the lead engineer on this project for Crossroad Engineers. What I want to go over real quick is the schedule. As of right now, we do have a letting for the project of July 8th, 2020, with construction in the fall of 2020 into 2021. So with that, I'll just run over the plan, the alignment we have so far set up. Right now, the path runs from 13th Avenue through Sarah Bolton Park, along Lick Creek, where it has 2 pedestrian bridges. Again, it'll keep following Lick Creek and then cross the creek again into the Charnwood neighborhood, or Carson Farms, I believe it's what it's called. So it'll follow along that neighborhood and then cross 9th Avenue and then through South Grove Park, up along Beech Creek, and then have another crossing, and then run up along the back of the development on Hornet Avenue up to Emerson Avenue. The path will be 12 feet in width. Through the wooded areas, we will have stone shoulders. The bridges, we've got prefabbed steel truss bridges. And as of right now, we plan on having a maintainable surface, whether that be concrete or a fabricated resin surface, fiberglass, which will have the same look as, wood or anything. We feel like going with wood would, being in the trees would allow water to sit and cause for a slippery surface. Special features, wood railing in any areas that we have steep slopes for protection. This mainly is around the creek through the wooded areas. And we also have articulated maps. We do have examples of this. I thought we did up there, but if not, I can provide those if anybody needs them. Other than that, I'll turn it over to Michael with the rest of the details of this.
Thank you. My name is Michael Crochell. I'm a landscape architect with Schneider. I think we've been involved on the idea for this greenway all the way back to 2006. So you've been waiting a while. We feel like we've been waiting a little while too. I want to run through a couple of additional things just to answer some questions, and then we'll open it up. Schneider's role is really to look at the trailheads, the points where the community is going to access the trail, and we've got 5 of those in mind. There are a few more than that, but there's 5 key places where we're gonna invest a little bit. We're gonna put some effort into what is the character for your trail. What is it? What's its personality going to look like? Can run through those 5 points. The first is at 13th, just south of Main, where the trail begins, right there at 13th, the north end of Sarah Bolton Park. It's going to connect to the existing sidewalk network. So if you're in that neighborhood, you can use your sidewalks to get to this path. The most significant trailhead is the second one south, and that is right in the middle of Sarah Bolton Park. That's where folks from the north half of town or beyond are going to generally drive to park their car and access the trail. If you don't live close enough to walk, that's going to be a starting point. So at a location like that, we're going to have what we call a trailhead, a paved area off the main line of the trail. There'll be some signage to get you oriented, a map of the whole, practically the whole city at that point, but to show where you are on the path, where it goes that direction, how far it goes that way. Some distances marked on there, some rules, rules of the road, expectations for users, just like any park would have a rules sign set up. The trail has those same sort of things. Emergency numbers to call, maintenance number to call if you see something amiss. Just an orientation for a user at a trailhead like that. The third one we have is down in Don Chalice Park, just off of 8th, just south of the school there. Again, that's a drive-to point from anybody wanting to come from the south half of town. That's probably, they'll come up 9th, can park there in the existing parking lot by the restrooms, the shelter, the playground, and then the trail can go north or south from there. A fourth access point, it's a bit more minor, is behind the school where 4th Avenue dead ends, and I'll point to it here. Right here. We know folks in that neighborhood are going to come down 4th. Right now it's a dead end. We're just going to pick up a sidewalk there. There might be a trash can and a park bench if that's a meeting place for folks to access the trail. Then the 5th one is all the way at the east end where the trail pops out there at Emerson and Hornet. There's a bus route there. If folks are using this trail as part of their transportation system, that's a place where we're linking in. Ultimately, we hope the trail goes further east toward the high school, a future phase, but for now, again, a small stopping point, a map to get you oriented, let you know where the trail goes from that point if you're new to it. And as I mentioned, the trailheads are just a small paved area. There's a place to sit, a place to throw your trash, a couple of trees so that, over the years we start to create some shade there, a sign to orient. I think that's about it. Trying to think what else to hit on. We've had some questions about various things, and I can kind of run through just a little bit of what we know. Go ahead.
A lot of questions.
Fire away.
I am president of our homeowners association in Carson's Farms.
Okay.
And I would encourage everyone who's involved in this, if you haven't actually come and walked it, because on the map, it looks like there's a lot of room, but actually the trail's gonna go right through everybody's backyards in Carson's Farms. We had our homeowners meeting, our annual meeting, about 2 weeks ago. And I have to tell you that everyone was upset about it. And we said, Lance and I said, we'll come and we'll ask questions.
Good.
And the main concern is safety, because this is gonna go right through everyone's backyards. You'll be able to look right in their house. Most of the people that built there or moved there did so because it's just a beautiful area. You can look out your backyard. We see deer, and fox, coyotes, everything is gorgeous. So our concern is who's gonna maintain it? Is it gonna be closed at night? Is it gonna be lit? If there's an emergency on the trail, who's gonna handle that? Is it gonna be patrolled by the police?
All right, let's stop it. Let's stop at
Trash.
5. Oh, I'm gonna lose track. Okay.
Who's gonna take care of it? Because right now, we have a group in our neighborhood, and we can't even keep up with picking up bottles and trash. So I can't even imagine opening it up back there, what it's gonna be like.
We've talked about all of those.
Yeah.
I guess. Do you wanna?
Yeah, I can, along with security and lighting, basically, a lot of the trailheads, if not currently already have lighting, we will put in new lighting at the trailheads. The trail is a dawn to dusk trail, so after that, it is preferred not to be used, yes. And there were talks about adding lighting for the entire trail. That was not ideal, because then that opens it up overnight, since it already is a dawn to dusk trail. So, as far as emergency, I mean, we have been in contact with, you know, the police have been involved in our meetings, as well as the emergency, fire department and everything. So I don't know about patrols. That'd be a better question for, you know, the police department, but I feel like with it being open during a certain amount of time, that would lessen, or even cancel out, I guess, the problems that might occur.
The city, through their grant application, is committed to maintain the trail, to trim, you know, as things start to grow back, to trim it, to pick up the trash, to maintain the surface. That is the city's responsibility. What was the other thing I was gonna say? We've been talking with police and fire emergency folks about how they will know how to respond if there is a problem out there, whether it's crime or an injury or whatever it might be. We've beefed up the pedestrian bridges so that they can be driven across with a vehicle. That's gonna help the maintenance folks, and that's gonna help the emergency folks to get to a point.
And that's gonna help the criminals, because they put one of these in.
Yeah.
I was in property management, and I'm not trying to be negative, but this is our home. And there's so many people that live in there that have small children, and they're petrified that this is opening up to a criminal element. And I can tell you, we did have one of these. I was in property management. One of our properties down in Texas, they did the same thing. It was near the university. They put in this beautiful walking trail, but it was wide enough for a car. It's supposed to be closed at night. Nobody has time to monitor it. People would pull in there, stop, get out, rob, break into cars, whatever, get back in their car and disappear. And the trail went right close to their loop. This was in Denton, Texas. So that is a concern. Everybody's thinking, well, yeah, but the bridge, if they want to, because currently we're having trouble with people on the other side of Sherman, youth that have mopeds, that are underage, they don't have any place to drive them, so they come in Carson's Farms and drive, and then go back on all the common ground and everything. So they'll probably be using the trail for their mopeds. I'm just saying it's something to think about. We just are
Sure.
really nervous and we wanna make sure that everyone is thinking about this, like if it was in your backyard. We just want you to, you know, protect us.
Right. One way that we've discussed doing that, to keep vehicles off the path, a moped, I don't know how much we can do other than enforcement for something like that, but at the points where the path enters a wooded area and we have a little bit of control of access, there will be a bollard or a post in the path. The emergency folks will have the keys, they can lay it down and drive in, but the rest of the time that is to be up and locked, so you can't easily drive your car in there.
Okay, that,
You wanna drive through the brush and push it, you might get stuck in the mud, you might get through, you know, we can't wall it off, but we do wanna make it, we don't wanna make it easy
okay,
to drive
that
back
sounds
in.
good.
That
Yeah.
piece we've talked about.
Now, have you guys, I've heard that there's a potential thought for a trail going through Carson's farm, and then maybe just have Trail B that goes on the east side of the creek, not going through Carson's farm. I believe it's the Timbers neighborhood, does that sound accurate?
It's on the other side of Lick Creek.
Opposite you guys.
Yes.
There's already a trail there.
They talked about like building a bridge, tearing down trees, making it accessible to go through Carson's farm versus, you don't deal with any of that. You kind of go with the trail, the sidewalk that's already there and just kind of extend that.
We may look offline with you, I want you to point out exactly what you're thinking. We've looked at multiple options, different sides of the creek, where's the right place to cross. In some cases, it's been where's the only place that it works well.
Yeah, we have a lot of wetlands and, you know, federal regulations that we have to deal with when it comes to the creeks and everything for crossings, so.
I'm curious what you're referencing, so let's look a minute after in detail. But we have looked at multiple routes, we've settled on a route, and we're vetting it, we're, you know, gathering comments about it. We think it's the most reasonable, we think it has, we think it's the best route. Are there others with questions?
I think it's important to note about call boxes and how the trail is marked as to where you're at.
Yeah, the marking on the trail is the one that slipped my mind. We do intend to mark the trail at regular intervals, a mile marker type system. Other trails in Marion County do that either with a post or we're thinking about something right on the pavement, a marking on the pavement every quarter mile. And then at significant nodes where it'll be a memorable place. Yeah, there's a small example up here of a marker on the trail. I think I printed it. I can pass it around. This is I shouldn't say it, it's a Carmel example, but it's a good example. We can pass it around and then take a look. But it is important to have some sort of mile marker system out there so that if there's an injury and someone needs to call in and say, hey, somebody's broken an ankle, they need help, I just passed mile marker 1.5. That helps the dispatch get folks there more quickly.
Is there any thought on cameras?
We've kicked it around. There are some in the parks already, so those sections are covered. To cover the whole
I think it
several
goes
miles.
along with the lighting. You know, the cameras would be best benefited during the trail hours when it's light out there. But, you know, at night, cameras aren't gonna see that anyway, so, and it's not supposed to be used at night as well, so. We
Camera's
did
not gonna show anything in the dark.
I
Correct.
just wondered, because up in New Delphi, where those children were murdered, they're going in now and they're putting in cameras everywhere because nobody will use the trail.
Mayor mentioned call boxes. That's a conversation we've had. You've probably seen on local news in recent years. There are call boxes on the Monon Trail north of downtown Indy. It's a blessing and a curse thing. If you put in a call box, it better work every time, right? And the problem's been that they're vandalized and they're damaged and then they're down and then that's when someone happens to need it. So, what we're seeing in working on these trail projects around the state, fewer and fewer call boxes are going in because more and more users have a phone in their hand already. And that's the route we've chosen to go, is to not not put the boxes in. It's not really about the cost as much as it is about it's a big commitment to put that in. You're committing to a long-term maintenance of that thing, and that can become quite a burden. The more folks that have phones in their hands, that everyone is a call box at that point. So that's how we've chosen to handle that question. Questions in the front? You're quiet.
Given, I think, the immense popularity this thing will be, we talked about it time before, but Don Chalice Park, that'll probably be that park gets a lot of traffic as it is. Parking capacity there, is that something that's gonna be figured in? Because on a Saturday, if you have and the mayor will tell you that shelter's booked basically from May through almost October. And you get those family reunions there, it's packed, so. We add in more cars, and what I worry about more or less is the overflow into, the Carrington community along that road and the parking, because that street gets tight, and if you have parking on both sides, because people are parking to use the trail, to me, it creates a lot of headache. So, have we looked at the possibility of expanding parking at Don Chalice? And the other question would be, would we look at banning parking on one side of the street of Carnwood as it runs back through, because that trail runs along a significant portion of Carrington.
The second question, I think, is easier. If the problem comes of parking on both sides, then that's something the city can certainly look at. If it never comes, then we don't need to look at the signs. We've not talked about expanding the parking, but we will.
Because you guys have dealt with this. What are we looking at for potential usage?
It's so hard to pin down the numbers, but
You go on the Monon or you drive by it on a summer day, it's packed.
It can get congested.
And I've seen the other trails get very packed with people, because people like them. They're very popular. And like I said, I just worry about that parking on the weekend, when people want to use the trail to walk their dogs or ride a bike, and, they go over to Don Chalice Park to park, and there's no parking there. So then they start finding other places to park, and, you know what I'm saying? And it's something that I think will be a problem in the summer months.
We'll discuss that parking lot specifically with the park staff. I want to get a better handle on, how important that could be. I do think the vast majority of users are coming on foot. You have some folks drive to the path, but most folks, way more than half the folks are arriving on foot or on bicycle.
Yeah.
That was one thing I didn't mention in the orientation sign is when it's for non-motorized users, but you can have bicycles on the path, you can have runners on the path, walkers, strollers. There's some direction on who should yield to who, to reduce conflict. You can't erase it, but you can reduce it out there. I think your trail will be comparable to Indianapolis's Pleasant Run. That's the closest one to here, from Garfield to Christian Park up to Irvington and Ellenberger Park.
Right.
The north end of that is busier than the south end is. I think your usage will start out comparable to that and probably increase over time. That's just a guess.
Mike or Matt, how can people get a hold of you?
They can't. Did you bring cards?
I did not bring a card, but,
You better give it out, you're on television.
yeah, my email, if you would like to contact me, email is probably the easiest way to do so, is McElroy, that's MMCELROY, at Crossroad Engineers.com.
I have a stack of cards up here too, if you want to grab one, and we'll communicate any messages we get.
Correct.
When is our next meeting, you know?
We do not have that scheduled yet, but I think the goal was to have those quarterly. So we had it last week, so here in another 3 to 4 months, so,
May, June.
yeah.
And anybody is welcome to attend?
Correct. And the way we usually do that is we'll send out to the email addresses that have been at the meeting and have them forward on to whoever they want to attend those meetings. Any other questions?
We'll stick around a while as well, so we can talk a bit offline if you want to get up close and look at the details. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we have anything else, Mr. Mayor?
No, the only thing that I would report to you is that the roundabout project at Arlington Churchman is getting closer and closer. I would say by July of 19, it should be, the bid should be let, so we're getting closer on that. Other than that,
Probably.
Did the board have anything? Anybody on the board? Anybody in the audience? Please.
go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Got handouts. Couple copies.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Aaron Lamb, and I was recently appointed to the school board. Not speaking on behalf of the board, it's just my own personal thoughts. But like Dr. Kaiser said, the number one goal in the school board is Childhood Development Center. 58% of the kindergartners that come into the school system at Beech Grove are unprepared for kindergarten, lacking basic skills. This is a high poverty area. Beech Grove, a lot of transient moving, etc. The school system here I think is wonderful. My wife, Teresa, and I moved here about 8 years ago. One of the main reasons we came is she's a teacher, and she came highly recommended that she ought to go to Beech Grove Schools, was highly recommended at the time. And so we moved here because of the schools. Now, in terms of economic development, as a redevelopment commission, in terms of assessed value, when you get people drawn to a good school system, your AV should increase. You're going to attract people, and the fact that the last 10 years or so, what you saw in terms of the Beech Grove school student population had gone down due to natural attrition or just population moving away and due to demographics and such. But the fact that Beech Grove is actually one of the highest in the state of people actually coming to Beech Grove versus other school. I believe we've had the most gains in terms of transfer students. And again, that's not because and that's because they came to Beech Grove because of opportunity. And so when you have 1,000 students coming to Beech Grove, maybe they can move here to Beech Grove, or maybe they just live on the border. But that's very, very important. And about several years ago, it's been 15 years ago, the city council here approved a RDC and TIF districts. And what that did, And really what they did is they put mostly Walmart and the Lowe's in a TIF district because they knew the land was just about to sell. And they said, let's put this in a TIF district. And when they did that, they then created this bunch of revenue for the city. And city council voted for that. And for good reason. We had, over the years, our main street was flooding. The flooding was going back into the neighborhoods because of inadequate, because it was old. The main street needed to be reconstructed. The city needed funds, and so you had the Main Street project, which was implemented and finished up by Mr. Buckley. And so I'll tell you, the business owners really liked that. There were a few other projects, some good, some bad. One of the best ones was we had a rock pile, almost a dumping ground right off Churchman. That pile there would still be a rock pile, mulch pile, if someone hadn't bought that property. The RDC at the time bought that property. They made a few mistakes doing so. They actually bought it when there was a bunch of property taxes they didn't factor into the cost calculation. But anyway, regardless, we bought that property in terms of the RDC, and eventually we looked at the RDC rules. We said, are they code and covenants, or I'm sorry, the RDC state law, and we actually had permission to give it away. And I understand Dennis actually gave it away to this senior, or at least at minimal cost.
Well, the people sitting up there.
Well, the RDC.
To turn a rock pile into a $9 million investment.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, that was a great move because you took something that was a eyesore that was causing reduced AV, and you turned it into that's what RDC is specializing in doing. I mean, that's what they're for. But at a certain point, it comes to a point where it comes into cost. What is this costing us? You look at the Walmart, you look at the Lowe's. The original law was that you could create a TIF for 30 years. And I emailed a bunch of questions to our clerk treasurer. He was unable to answer these questions. I thought maybe the RDC, hopefully you got my email. Some of these questions involve, and I also forwarded an article about a township in Indiana that dissolved their RDC. And part of the quotes in that RDC, or they dissolved not their RDC group, but a particular TIF that they had enacted. And that TIF, he said, well, the project's done, and he rolled back. They closed the TIF. There was no reason to collect money on that anymore. But based off my calculations, and I was hoping the RDC could confirm this, but over the last 15 years, I believe the RDC, the project spent, because if that money were in the local tax distribution, meaning it goes 52% to the school, X percent to the fire department, X percent to the police department, library, et cetera. I believe the RDC TIF district, my estimation up to this point is it's cost the school $3 million. Now, depending on when the end date of the TIF district is, which if it's 30 years, my estimation is, and we actually have an increased AV at this point because we have, because I know there's been expansion at particular manufacturing locations, the granary, assessed value has gone up, et cetera. But over the next 15 years, the school itself will lose about $6 million by keeping this TIF in place, the current TIFs in place. And so, and what this comes down to is a question of values. What do we value in this community? And, I think I made it clear what I valued when I moved here. Here we're going to ask the school to go to the community, mostly impoverished area, and ask for a third referendum. this community has been so generous to us, to the school. They've been understanding, they've approved the referendums. Now, other school districts have been not so lucky. IPS is going to, they just approved a referendum for, I believe this May. It's about 28 cents per $1,000 assessed value. They had to lower that because there was some outrage already. They requested $1 billion. It's now down to 700 million. They still want to, we'll see if that passes. That'll be a good test, but I don't know. The community's been very generous, but, you know, there's a lot of people who have limited funds, and I think we need to come down, re-question our values of what we want to spend our money on. Now,
Can I interrupt you for a second, because you've talked for a while, and I want to make a couple of points.
sure.
First, when the RDC was started, no one will deny, especially myself, that there were some projects that were pure folly and there was a waste of taxpayer money. We're currently paying off a lot of that debt till 2021. Since I've been on this RDC, I can tell you, not $1 has gone to a private company. But what we have done is Dr. Kaiser asked for $25,000 one year, and as part of it, we gave him that money. Dr. Kaiser asked for help on the road leading out of Hornet Park community. Your RDC funded that and
Right,
helped them out.
50,000, right?
And I'll tell you another thing, you wouldn't have the assessed value over there at where the rock pile was without the RDC. We
Yeah,
fought awfully hard for that, and because we have that community, we've increased the value around it, which does what? Gives more dollars to Dr. Kaiser. Do I think RDCs can be bad? Absolutely. We see
But
all
it's
over
not
the-
giving dollars to the school
Oh,
right now.
absolutely it is. We're increasing
That's
the
in
value.
15 years.
If the RDC is designed to increase the value of the community around it, that increases the tax base, which allows more money to go to school. I would point out when in Beech Grove in 2009, when the housing bubble happened, Beech Grove lost over $250 million in assessed value. Prior to that, we were worth $550 million in AV. I think, according to Jeff Peters, we're over $300 million now. We're still a long ways off.
Right.
Beech Grove is in a unique position because we get a lot of transfers who don't want to go to IPS. Why? Because it's bureaucratic, it's not very good, and a lot of people like our school and where we are. But, you know, it's a mistake to think that, you know, again, the RDC is putting in the Greenway. And I know there's folks nervous about a Greenway, but the truth is, if you look at the Monon and some of these other greenways, they increase the property values near those greenways by about 15 to 20% over other houses nearby. So again, it's adding value to the community. A few years ago, we improved the park system. We put over $100,000 into our park system, new bathrooms. Again, this is money that wasn't available to the Parks Department that we stepped up and did. So to say that these TIFs are somehow robbing the schools is not entirely accurate. They're used for different things. Now, if they're used to give companies money, I agree with you. I think private companies should pay their own bills. I don't think the taxpayer should do it. That's why I'm not a fan of the idea of Amazon. Giving millions of dollars to private companies to me is wrong, especially when it's taxpayers. But if an RDC is used to improve the community or to add value to it, then the fire department it gets benefit, the police, the trash, and the school systems. It's a tool for good, but yes, it is a tool for evil too, if people use it as a slush fund or give it to companies. And, you know, that happened early on, but it hasn't happened since 2012, I'll tell you that.
Well, thank you. I'm not questioning anything that you spent your money on right now.
I mean, look at
There's
Indianapolis.
guidelines here.
They give out hundreds of millions of dollars in TIF money. They have got TIF districts all over the place. That garage in Broad Ripple was built with TIF money.
Right.
That doesn't go to the schools there. I'm just saying, TIFs, I mean, you can ask our attorney, RDCs are in every community. There's very few communities that don't have them. Again, I do like you, I question the value of them at times, you know?
Do you know when the TIF districts are going to end?
Well, I know we will be out of debt in 2021. and I
2020.
know at any time, the city council can be approached about that and ask about that. But you would have to, you know, Ms. Lampion's on our city council. You would have to convince them that, you know, the TIFs do not serve a purpose. They're hurting more than they're helping.
Yeah.
And then your city council, which appoints 2 RDC members and the mayor appoints 3, those people would have to decide that there is no economic value to an RDC, that we'd be better off getting rid of it.
Well, I am
I mean,
not
that's what I'm saying. It's
advocating.
not us. And
Yeah, I'm not advocating that we get rid of the RDC. If we close some of the TIFs and we end some of the TIFs, at that point, you
Well,
can have,
if you do that, then
you
you
can
run
have
out of
the,
money. Because right now, the RDC takes in about $1.2 million a year. Now, we pay almost $600,000 in bad debt every year, so it limits our ability to do things. Prime example, if we hadn't done Digital City and some of these other harebrained ideas back in the early 2000s, we wouldn't have this debt, and we'd be in a better position to do things, but
I
when you
understand the
when
history
you take
there.
on the folly of that, yet you get stuck with it, and I get your point, but let's say we didn't have that debt and we were getting $1 million a year. Would we be in a position to help the schools with some of this stuff? Yeah.
Can I
and we
ask a
probably
What
should.
percent of $1
Please.
million
Is
would the
there
schools
something-
get?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there something that the schools ask the RDC of that they have denied?
Oh, I'm not aware of anything that they have, I'm coming to ask you about for $5 million.
Well, we don't get 5 million.
Well, you would if you canceled the TIF on the Walmart and
Well, first of
Lowe's.
all,
As
that
soon as
TIF
the
has gone
bond is
down
paid
over
off.
$30,000 because those stores have appealed as the big box law.
Right.
And, you know, let me ask you this. The RDC has done things like helped with roads and sewers. A prime example is the property over there off of 17th Street where they've torn down the hospital. It was the Redevelopment Commission that put in thousands of dollars to redo a street and sidewalks around there to make that property more attractive. And I think now that the hospital's gone, we've heard talk that that property may sell, and those are types of things that we do. Let's say we didn't do that, and nobody buys that property, and it devalues. Guess what? Dr. Kaiser loses money.
I would say that the amount of the assessed value that the RDC has increased does not in any way come close to the amount that the school and the fire department, the police department, and other local government boards would get from eliminating the TIF on the
You may be
Walmart
right,
and
but you're gonna have to
Walmart.
convince Ms. Lamping and 7 other city councilors that that's the way to go, and you're gonna have to convince the mayor.
Well,
And it
it's a
may-
question of
and-
values.
Well, you're right, and you know what? If you go down to the city of Indianapolis, you know, they bonded $85 million to build high-rise luxury apartments that cost over $2,000 a month to rent. Now, do I think that was a good value? No, but they'll tell you, well, the building's there and all this money, but I disagree with that. They bonded City Way, which was down there on the corner of South and Delaware. That was a $95 million project they did. Do I think those are right necessarily? No. I didn't think it was right when we gave $350 million to United, but again, people get together, they vote for city representatives. Those representatives have decided that TIFs are a good deal. I'm not disagreeing with you. I question them. There's a study at Ball State questioning the effectiveness of RDCs. And we, on this board, Kathy's been here since 2011, Ron since 2011. We've heard people come to us, ask for everything, and we've turned them down a lot of times because in our value judgment, we don't like that. And I don't disagree with you. I would like Dr. Kaiser to have more funds and resources, but the truth is, the world has changed. The values have changed. Schools are now in competition with charter schools, private schools, vouchers. So we have to reinvent the wheel, and schools have to reinvent the wheel. They have to progress. The days of, you know, they have to pick and choose. And a community will decide in February, or in the 2019, 2020, with a referendum, whether Dr. Kaiser's values and the values they want for their community and their children are worth paying extra money for. And that's democracy.
I mean, would you want to put any of the RDC projects up for referendum? I mean, that's,
You know what? They are put up for referendum. When you vote for Ms. Lamping in 2019,
Right.
Mayor Buckley in 2019, and the other 6 councilors in 2019, that's putting them up for referendum. Because I served at-
well,
I served at Ms.
the reason I'm
Lamping's-
here is I asked a bunch of questions,
And we
detailed
have
questions.
responded to those. Mr. Runn has responded to those. We have gotten Jeff
We
Peters.
emailed you this afternoon.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay.
If you've not checked your email.
Great.
We answered questions 1 through 5, and between, your
Great.
questions 6 through 9.
What?
We'll need to have a discussion because you it will take research and review to calculate some of those questions, but the effect of ending a TIF district will not result in more revenues other than to the capital projects fund. It will not, it will lower taxes, but it will not result in money. The link that you posted in one of your emails, which was a 140-page handbook written by a Barnes and Thornburg lawyer, handbook for RDC members and attorneys, summed up the effect if you relinquish a TIF district and that tax rate, and only the capital projects fund for schools and only the cumulative savings fund for cities would receive more revenue. The effect of the rest of it is just lower tax.
Yeah, I just want to, that's why I'm asking the questions, is I want to know what the effect is, so that people know, so that they know when they're making a decision and they can appeal to their counselors, et cetera. I mean, I'm not sure that we want to be beholden to what the city council voted on, 15 years ago, to establish the values of what we want to do right now. I mean, I think you have pretty high rate of turnover,
Well,
maybe,
To
Buddy,
your
or,
point, I understand that, but
Right.
back in, what was it, 1990, 91, the city council of Indianapolis voted to pay United Airlines over $50 million, and guess what? It's 30 years later, we're still paying those bonds. We're still
Well,
paying
but-
bonds for Market
but
Square
we're-
Arena. So
but we have an
who are we voting
opportunity-
Who gets elected?
we have an opportunity here, is the bonds for Main Street, the projects that were mentioned under previous administrations, et cetera, when you say bad debt, whatever debt, that is going to be paid off in 2021.
Because
And
the
I
RDC
applaud,
renegotiated
I
those
applaud you for
bonds.
renegotiating that loan, saving the interest, because the interest was too high before. So that refinance was a great move, and I applaud you for that. I applaud the RDC for the development of the rock pile, the completion of Main Street. And I don't doubt that those have been great projects, and that the RDC's contributed. But at this point, we got to figure out, what is your long-term plan? The school board, the school superintendent just presented a 5-year vision of what the goal is, and of what the school goal is, which includes community center, the child development center, et cetera. But I just want to go through and make sure that we're making
Well, and I
the
would ask
decisions.
Dr. Kaiser if he thinks he's better off with or without an RDC.
But
Because again, when they needed the road constructed, his budget didn't necessarily have it, but
right,
came
well,
from
but
RDC,
but-
and I think it was a unanimous vote that we voted to help him.
okay, but $75,000 is a lot different than over the next
But see, you
15
assume
years.
that money's gonna
What I
be there.
project.
Let's say the RDC's gone and it
Right.
goes to capital funding.
Well, I'm not
There's no
saying that
guarantee
the
money's
RDC
gonna go
has
to
to be
the school, as
gone.
Robert pointed out. I mean, there's no guarantee.
Robert,
You
didn't
got-
you want to say something
Well-
else?
The other thing I wanted to say is, there's also the effect, Walmart and Lowe's would not be here without the contribution of the RDC, and so that does cause the AV to go up.
Well, yeah, what did we pay for that? An intersection, and a little bit of development cost. We paid very little to, quote, entice them to come here, but that was kind of a done deal. I firmly believe that was, the previous administration just put that in place because they knew that would be a vital source of money. They put the TIF in right before they came in, which is fine, but I just want to re-question what the RDC's long-term goal. Is your goal to pay off the debts, and at that point, go on with different projects and make those projects, have them create their own bonds, release the current TIFs, and then start the process again? I fully support that. I mean, there's good projects that what you're doing, and I'm not saying yay or nay to any kind of particular project. I'm not doing that right now. I'm saying there's a development, say CSX, right there, the railroad property. If we were to get something into that, what is that, 120 acres? If we got a development in off CSX, and if the RDC did something like that, the RDC could bring in millions of dollars that way. Spend some money to develop that. There's other opportunities that you could possibly do.
There absolutely is, but
Right.
what you're saying is we should get rid of the TIFs in the RDC, so if we do that, how are we gonna get that?
No,
I'm just saying.
the TIFs are individual. You can get rid of the Wall Street or the Walmart TIF, but leave, a particular other TIF. You could
Well,
create
when you
new
do that, You
TIFs.
start chopping out the legs of the RDC. Like I say, we take in about 1.2 million a year. And
But-
I can't give you the exact number, but the Walmart thing is about 35% of what we take in, so.
But Walmart and Lowe's is like 77%.
Okay, so you want to get rid of 77% of our funding and then want us to go and do these projects.
Well-
That's not going to work.
Well,
What are
you
you
can
gonna pay
create a
for?
new TIF and
Where are you gonna create a new
execute
TIF,
a
though?
bond. You can execute.
So if I go and create a new TIF, then I'm taking money from a different area away from the school.
Okay, for instance, we want to spend money on, was it facades on Main Street, improve Main Street? I mean, that's great. But this particular point 12 of that page that I gave you, it says that you should create a bond off of the future assessed
Well,
value
But
of that.
here's the thing on that, that is not the RDC doing that. That is the RDC and the City Council of Beech Grove possibly discussing
Right.
putting in money for a grant, which we
Right.
would help fund the grant, and the grant would cover the majority of that money. And it's not a lot of money we're talking about putting in.
Right.
But it would add some assessed value to the Main Street. And there have been, Mayor Buckley can correct me, but there have been about 25 businesses that have shown interest in that. And
Well, that's great.
but I'm just saying though, if we get rid of the Walmart TIF and all this, the RDC wouldn't have $5,000 or whatever it is to give to them, because like I say, we would be cash strapped. And you gotta realize, this is a volunteer board. We have no other.
well, the school is cash strapped, I'll tell you that.
Well, every
And-
school is cash strapped. Every government,
Right.
I've yet to meet a person in government that isn't cash strapped. Show me a government agency that isn't cash strapped.
Okay, well, I
mean,
just
which
want
one?
the community
Police
to know
department's cash strapped.
what decisions, I don't even know that most 99% of the community understands the legalese and the financing part of this. And it's our job to educate them, I think.
Well, and I welcome you to do that. If you want to get rid of the RDC, again, I have no problem with that. You should talk to Ms. Lamping, you should talk to the city councilors, you should talk to your neighbors. You should get them to be involved and say, we want to get rid of this. And then they vote them out if they don't want to get rid of it, and get the people in there who will change your laws. That's how it works, but we're not going to settle this tonight. I understand your
Right.
points, and I don't disagree with a lot of them, but I'll tell you right now, the RDC will keep going as it is, and we're not giving up our TIFs until our debt's paid off. And at that point in time, then you can talk about it. But that's
Yeah, you have to pay off the
4
debts.
years from now.
Right.
And by then, if CSX comes along and says, hey, RDC, if you will spend $350, $400, $1 million to build roads and re-improve intersections and make rail crossings safe, and we're going to put in a $12 million warehouse, what do you want us to do?
Well,
So
you
now we need to
issue
put
a
them-
bond, and then you
It's not like,
create.
it's not like, well, hey, banks, we need 10 million in bonds. That's not how it works. You spend 300,000 or 400,000 alone on writing the bonds. You have to have underwriters. You have to have lawyers go through it. You have to go through several processes. It is not easy. I'll give you a prime example. To my point, in 2008, or it was 9, the city of Beech Grove through the RDC spent $454,000 on bonds for the hospital, which was torn down. You know what we got out of that? Absolutely nothing. They spent it, they never issued them. They even created a special medical TIF over there, which still exists to this day, that collects about $20,000 a year for St. Francis for these improvements that never came. But the city of Beech Grove and the RDC spent almost $500,000 on nothing. So it's not as easy as you think, and the projects have to be vetted by the mayor, by the city council, and the RDC. And again, when Dr. Kaiser comes and says, I need help, he knows he's got a receptive ear here.
Well,
And we
he's
work
not
with him.
officially asked, I don't think, any money for this project, but.
But that's what
they-
to say he does it in 2019, and if we have the money and we have the ability to do it, we do it.
Well,
I'm just saying,
But
that's,
this says there's a 15% of annual TIF revenues
that can go.
that can go. Would
Right.
would there be any way to increase that 15%
He
legally?
has not come to us to ask for training, and again, it has to be training that Robert will tell you would have to be covered under RDC law. And we've had people come to us before, Robert will tell you, and ask about training, and again, there's a lot of stipulations to that. It's like an RDC, we cannot go, once a building's done, and pay for maintenance on it. It's a one-time thing. If we help a business, we can help it once. They can't come back and say, well, will you pay for maintaining this? We are not allowed to, by law, do that. And again, if Dr. Kaiser said, hey, my teachers need training, I need 25,000, can you guys help me? He would find a receptive ear. He would come, he would make his case, and we'd either vote yes or no. And that's how the process is supposed to work.
Right.
I'm not saying we wouldn't, when I came here early on, we turned down Dr. Kaiser, but we were under different leadership then, and the information we got was different then. But the last 2 times Dr. Kaiser has approached this board, we have been very open to him. And we've been very open to the school. I don't think there's a member on this board who doesn't support the school system.
But
And we've even got Rick Skirvin, who isn't here tonight, but he represents the school board at these RDC meetings. So I would talk to Rick about it too, because he is your representative on the school board that has to sit here by law. Indiana law states that the school board gets to have one
non-voting
sitting
member, yes.
non-voting member, but
Right.
one sitting member is here.
Right.
So, I mean, you've got resources open, but like I say, it's not gonna be settled tonight, but
I just wanted to make sure that I have accurate numbers. Thank you for responding.
anytime.
Thank you very much. I believe there's a lot to discuss in the future, so.
Well, and I encourage you, like I say, talk to your city councilors, you can, I don't have a problem with an open discussion. I don't think it's a bad idea, but, right now, the city of Beech Grove is using the RDC, and the RDC has done nothing but put value back into Beech Grove. Like I say, the Greenway, when they built the Safeway over there, we had repaired sidewalks around there. Now, the mayor did more and put planters out there, but that was a business we got in here right away, and we will continue to work with the mayor and the city council to improve Beech Grove, because I think that's all of our goal. We'd like to see
all
this
right.
town keep going up.
Yep. Well, thank you for all your help
You're
with that
welcome,
then.
thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak, or?
Don,
Yes, sir.
I think you should make clear how much money the RDC has spent on St. Francis demo or courting businesses into St. Francis since the first day of 2012.
None. And the one thing the RDC did in its due diligence is we had a company who was gonna come in and try to take over that hospital and turn it into business, healthcare, senior living. And again, the RDC through due diligence checked on some of their other properties and found out that this company liked to come in, cash in a lot of bonds, and then file bankruptcy and leave town. And RDC, through our attorney and stuff, spoke up at a zoning and fought them to where they became quickly disinterested. And then thankfully, we have a good corporate neighbor in Franciscan who finally, working with the mayor, agreed to tear down the old hospital. As sad as it is to see something like that where almost everybody here was born, but we've got 400 jobs through the visiting nurse, and they saved the one tower. And we're gonna have a huge green space there, possibly a fire and police station, which again, will improve the value of the community. It'll be more fast acting, it'll be closer to the trail. I mean, these are all good things that are happening again, because we have a good relationship with the mayor and the city council. We work together, and again, we work in the best interest. And I've always told Dr. Kaiser, if you need something, call me. We'll listen to you. When he said, hey, I can't make it to February's meeting, I'll make it March, I said, you can be first up. That way you can get home to Monrovia. I'll work with anybody, and that's our goal here. And again, Kathy's been here since 2011, and she could tell you back in 2011 what a nightmare this was. So, I understand your concerns. I get it totally. Anybody else? I feel like I've talked too much. I apologize. Well, if nobody has anything else, I think it's time to ask for a motion to adjourn, and I thank you guys for coming tonight.
I make a motion.
Second? All right, the meeting is adjourned at 8:20. We will see you in April. In April, I will not be here. I think we will be in Washington, D.C., learning about U.S. history to a 10-year-old.
April 5th?
Oh.